Evaluation separates you and the A-star that you are dreaming of, and it seems like only the top IGCSE students can do this. Until now. And in this video, I am going to show you how to get all of the evaluation marks for paper 1 and paper 2. And this will be with the help of the specimen paper answers for paper 1 and paper 2. I will be using some of its exemplar answers and the examiner's feedback, and the links to these documents are in the description below. Firstly, here are some rules for evaluation for paper 1 and 2. 1. Make a clear decision. 2. Reject the alternatives. 3. You will not be awarded any additional marks for repeating anything that you've already written. And 4. Avoid new knowledge points. There are 2 methods to reject an alternative. The first method is to select away and justify why it's the best. This is your first evaluation mark. And then to justify why the other way is not the best. And this is your second evaluation mark. However, for method 2, making a choice for the best option remains the same. But the rejection is justifying your chosen way is better than the other way. And that is also a form of rejection. Paper 1. Explain 2 factors Oscar should consider when deciding on a suitable source of finance for his business. Which factor is likely to be the most important? Justify your answer. This is the examiner's comment for the specimen paper answers for paper 1. The examiner's comment focuses on the whole question, but I'd like to focus specifically on how to get the evaluation marks. So according to the comment, it said that a decision is made and it's justified for explaining the importance. And this is where the first evaluation mark is gained. And the second evaluation mark is gained by explaining why the other factor is less important. This is my example of the evaluation for this question. The most important factor is the amount of funds required. The first line here, I have clearly made a decision, and it is justified by saying, without sufficient funds, Oscar cannot start up his business, so he cannot earn revenue to cover his costs. Then for the second evaluation point, I've stated why legal form is less important because without enough money, the nursery cannot start. So high interest rates as a sole trader only matters after the business is operating. So that's a clear justification of why legal form is less important than having the right amount of funds. And this is what a Model 8 marker looks like. So for the same question, the answer is as follows. Legal form is seen as higher risk, therefore they will need to pay high interest rates. The amount of funds required is the most important to cover its financial needs. And within the analysis of Factor 1 and Factor 2, sole trader is identified as the application point. If you want a more detailed explanation of application and analysis, those videos are in the description below. And for the 2 evaluation points, without sufficient funds, Oscar cannot start up. And legal form is less important because without money, it cannot start up. So high interest rates don't really matter. And there you have it. This is an 8 out of 8 answer using the examiner's feedback. As you can see, this script has followed the 4 rules. It's made a clear decision, it's rejected the alternatives, it hasn't repeated anything, and there's no additional knowledge points in the evaluation. Moving on to example 2. Do you think the advantages to HLC of horizontal integration are greater than the disadvantages? Justify your answer. Again, we are looking at the examiner's comment, and this script scored 8 out of 8. And how the next script scored the 2 evaluation points is that they have made a decision, and the decision or the point of view is then supported. Then they have explained and justified that the disadvantage will have a greater effect on HLC and that it's more significant than the advantage. So let's have a look at what they wrote. The disadvantages is greater because demotivated employees can result in lower quality products being made. They've identified that the disadvantage of demotivated employees is lower quality products, and the effect of this is that it could damage HLC's reputation. And this will give us the first evaluation point. And then for the second evaluation point, they said that rather than increasing its consumer base, a bad reputation is likely to result in fewer customers wanting to buy its products. So what this candidate has done is essentially doubled down on their first evaluation point, which is bad reputation, which lead to fewer customers wanting to buy its products, which eliminates the potential of having a larger consumer base. So simply put, this candidate has said, it doesn't matter if your consumer base is higher, because with a bad reputation, nobody is going to buy the product. So let's have a look at the full 8 out of 8 candidate answer. A larger customer base will help increase its revenue for its chocolate. However, the business may have different ways of working, which could cause demotivation for its 80 employees. Demotivated employees will cause lower quality products, which will harm its reputation, and a bad reputation will result in fewer customers, which will eliminate the potential advantage of having a larger customer base. As you can see here, this script has followed the 4 rules. It's made a clear decision, it's rejected the alternatives, it doesn't repeat, and it has avoided new knowledge points. So let's have a look at some paper 2 examples. This is the rubric for a 12-mark question. And in order to get the level 3, candidates will need to provide a well-justified recommendation and include why the alternatives was rejected. So for our first example, the question is, consider the following 3 methods of market research TT could use when deciding which product to sell in a new cafe. Which method should TT use? Justify your answer. This script scored 8 out of 12, meaning they did not get any of the evaluation points. So let's have a look at the feedback. So I've highlighted the most important things that the examiner said. You need a well-justified recommendation, and it needs to contain why it was made. That is for your first level 3 mark. And then you need to discuss why the 2 alternative options were rejected. And you will get 1 level 3 per reasoned rejection for each alternative. This is the evaluation or recommendation section of this question. I have used the examiner's feedback in the previous slide to inform my 3 level 3 points in this answer. The best method is observation because it allows TT to see how customers behave in cafes, giving accurate data of which desserts and cakes are genuinely popular. Observation is more reliable than focus groups as people's answers can be influenced by others in the group or by the interviewer. Furthermore, competitor websites are not the best because they only show what other cafes sell, at what price, and not consumer preferences. In this answer, I have made the clear decision that observation is the best, as they can see how consumers behave and get the most accurate data. This is justified, and a level 3 has been awarded. I've then said answers will be influenced by others in focus groups. That's why observations are more reliable. And my final level 3 will be that the websites will only show prices and what they sell, and not consumer preferences. So in summary, I have made a clear decision, and I've justified it, then I've rejected the 2 alternatives with justification. Let's take a look at the candidate response. Arguably, this is a very good response. They have advantages and disadvantages for all 3 analysis points of competitors' websites, focus groups, and observations in other cafes. And because there is clear application in the analysis, they scored 8 out of 12. If you would like more information on the breakdown of the 12 marker, the link is in the description below. And finally, for the recommendation, observation is best because they can see how customers behave in cafes that gives the most accurate data. Observation is better than focus groups because answers can be influenced by others. Furthermore, websites are not the best because they only show what other cafes sell and at what price and not customer preferences. And with an application in the analysis, which is cafes, and an application in the recommendations, which is desserts, this script has now been upgraded to a 12 out of 12. Let's have a look at another example. Use Appendix 2 and other information to consider TT's financial position. Do you think TT's financial position improved in 2025? Justify your answer using suitable calculations. So looking at the examiner's comment for this response, and looking specifically at the evaluation, it says the recommendation did make a judgment which included a simple justification. and the response moved into the lower part of the level 3 band, which is 9 out of 12. And they have feedback here on how to improve the recommendation for this question, which will be on the next slide. Its financial position in 2025 had not improved as the current ratio and the acid test ratio have both fallen, showing that it was in a worse financial position. Now, the examiner's comment said this was simple, but yet you can see that this candidate has made a clear decision that it was in a worse financial position because the current ratio and the acid test ratio had fallen. And this will be the first level 3 point. The current ratio dropped from 3:1 to 1.5:1 and the acid test ratio to 0.5. And this was mainly due to the $5 million overdraft, which has reduced TT's liquid assets. The candidate here has reasoned the drop in the current and acid test ratios, which was the $5 million overdraft, and has explained its effect. And for the last level 3 point, I've said that TT has taken a $3 million bank loan in 2025, which has raised its interest rates and lowers its profitability. And this is a reason and impact of why TT's financial position has not improved in 2025. Now here's a copy of the candidate's answer. The first paragraph here is arguably just copying and pasting the data from the text. So the entire paragraph there is a level 1 answer. However, paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 have evidence of complex calculations and explanations. And according to the examiner's comment, using the numbers counts as application. Here. So if you have a calculation question, the numbers will suffice as application. And lastly, in the recommendation, I have made a decision, and then we have given further reasoning that TT's liquid assets has gone down, and furthermore, they've taken a $3 million bank loan, which raises interest costs and lowers profitability, which further justifies TT's financial position is not as good in 2025. Remember that the recommendation I have written is following the examiner's comments from a few slides back. And you may have realized that the $3 million bank loan in 2025 does not appear anywhere in this text, which violates Rule 4, which is avoid new knowledge points. Now, I cannot find anything in the official documents from Cambridge saying you cannot use new knowledge points in paper 2 specifically. However, in the examiner comments for paper 1 specifically for the evaluation, it says, a decision must be supported by a reasoned argument and not simply summarize points already made or introduce new knowledge. The evaluation should follow on from the analysis of points in the answer. So, based on this, I'm going to be conservative and stick to this rule for both paper 1 and paper 2. I hope that helped. I hope you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.